touch any religion. So you don't shove religion down anybody's throat. You don't force anyone into submission to the truth. That is a load of rubbish. You don't enforce the Sharia on a people who don't believe the Sharia. That is a load of rubbish. So the Khalifa is meant to establish rule on earth, not oppression, not shoving the truth down people's throat. But wherever on Allah's earth you have authority, you establish government and rule based on truth. And when there is truth, there is no oppression. When truth prevails, there is no form of oppression. None. So why then did Iblis refuse to submit to Adam alayhi salam? Of course, the construction of the sentence is also meant to teach methodology. If you are a schoolboy, and you know, we all schoolboys sometimes. I was a schoolboy once. And you say, but wait a minute, but the command was given to the angels. And all submitted except him. So logically, he had to be an angel. Schoolboy. Because you take the verse in isolation. This is schoolboy methodology. And Allah wants you to learn your lesson. Don't take any verse of the Quran in isolation. Don't be a schoolboy. Go to the totality of the book and take all the data and integrate it harmoniously to get that which binds it all together. And that you'll know what Allah is talking about. So angels cannot disobey. No. Angels cannot disobey. But he disobeyed. So he can't be an angel. He disobeyed, so he cannot be an angel. But the schoolboy already declared he's an angel. And then Allah says elsewhere in the Quran, he's jinn. So that's just methodology. And I have a book here, which just came out of the printery a few days ago. And I hope and I pray that you read this book. Methodology for study of the Quran. Do please, please, please read and study this book. So then he refused to make sajda. So Allah asked him, Iblis, when I ordered you to make sajda, why did you refuse? Do you know the answer he gave? I hope we will be friends when the lecture is over. Okay? I hope and pray we'll be friends when the lecture is over. He said, I'm better than him. I was created superior. I am born superior. I belong to a superior class. Do you remember hearing these words? You heard in this country, you heard in that country, you heard there, you heard there. I don't want to mention names. I am better than him. You created me from fire, you created him from clay. I don't know what the Arab was created from. I don't know what the Malay was created from. I don't know what the Chinese were created from. I don't know what the Europeans were created from. But this one says, I belong to a master race. You must have heard that in Penang. Huh? I was born to rule the world. I have a mission to civilize Imran Hosein, who when he eats curry fish and rice, you know what he does? He rolls up his sleeve, he washes his hands, and like some barbarian, he takes his fingers and eats. I was born with this mission to civilize the world. that civilized people don't eat like that. And civilized people don't dress like this. And civilized people shave off their beards. You heard it, didn't you? And they sent their armies all over the world because they had the scientific and technological revolution. And they colonized the rest of the world because they are the master race with a mission to civilize the rest of the world. We are natives. We are inferior to them. Anyone, now don't be annoyed with me, anyone who considers himself superior to another human being by virtue of belonging to a certain race, a certain class, a certain ethnicity, that I belong to a superior class than you, I'm born superior to you, I got news for you. You belong to the Jamaat of Shaitan. And there's, in English it's called a stench, a bad smell. A stench. In Urdu, it's Farsi is badbu. In Malay? Busu. There's busu coming from such people. So if you are to benefit from today's lecture of an introduction to Islamic eschatology, and if you are to play a significant role in the end of history, banish this from the heart, that you are not superior to any human being. No. What makes it superior is your conduct, your faith, what is in the heart, not what you are born with. But those who arrogantly pursue the agenda of imposing their blood-stained rule over the whole of mankind, by the hook and by the crook, mostly by the crook, they are people who are following in the footsteps of Shaitan. They say, we are superior to you. Like Iblis said, I'm superior to him. That's how history began. And that is how history is ending. That is how history began. And that is how history is ending. I have used the Quran to connect the dots of history. This branch of knowledge does not as yet exist in Islam. We have not as yet developed Islamic eschatology as an independent branch of knowledge. No. We are now attempting to establish a branch of knowledge that the Christians have already. The Jews already have it. We don't have it. But we have the Quran. And if you pursue the effort, and Allah blesses you with knowledge, you'll be able to connect the dots in the Quran and develop an eschatological understanding of the world today. They want to impose their rule over the world arrogantly in order that Israel might rule the world. And only when Israel rules the world, then can this man stand up in Jerusalem and confidently declare, I am the Messiah. But he would not be the Messiah. He would be Dajjal, the false Messiah. Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam told us, there's more in the beginning of history. I'm writing my book on Dajjal now. And at this time I'm writing the chapter on the Quran and the beginning of history. So it's not there in any of my books there, but in another few months I hope this book will be finished. So we don't have more time to spend with the beginning of history. Let us now go to Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, who said that when Dajjal is released by Allah to commence his mission of impersonating the true Messiah and eventually ruling the world from Jerusalem. He will live on earth for 40 days. One day, which would be like a year. It didn't say one day which would last as a year. No. It said one day which would be like a year. Yawmun kasana. A day which would be like a month. Yawmun kashahr. A day which would be like a week. Yawmun ka Jum'ah. And then after that, Sa'iru ayyamihi ka ayyamikum. He will be in our world of space and of time as a human being. So we will see him. But before that, there are 3 stages. And I am suggesting to you, gently so, because only Allah knows the truth, that when Allah spoke of the shadow, which when it comes will appear in 3 stages, Allah is speaking about this. The 3 stages that Dajjal will pass through before he appears in human form in our world of space and time. Are there angels in this room apart from your wife? Are there angels in this room? Yes. What? One on each shoulder. Can you see them? No. Are there jinn in this room? Are there jinn? I know there are lots in Washington. Yes, there are jinn here. Can you see them? Then why should it be so difficult? Why should it be so difficult to understand? That Dajjal can be released. He can be in this world and yet not in our world of space and time. Why? Don't you teach your children, as my father taught me, that when you come back home and you open the door, there's no one in the house, but the children have to be taught to say Salaam Alaikum. They don't do that in that godless part of the world, which now wants to teach Imran Hosein how to eat. But in our part of the world, we teach our children to say Assalamu Alaikum when you open the door. There are angels in the house. So Dajjal is here. Yes, he is here. But you can't see him. He is passing through 3 stages of a shadow. And this is a dangerous shadow. The first stage will last for the longest period of time. And then the second stage will last for a shorter period of time. But the third stage will last for the shortest one of all. Where is the shadow? We know that Dajjal was released in the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ. I have a book entitled Jerusalem in the Quran. I guess some of you must have read it. It was written, we have it in Bahasa as well. It was written 12, 14 years ago. And in that book you'll find all of this analysis, all this. 14 years ago. The Dajjal was released in an island called Britain. Where is the evidence? I only have this much time. Maybe in the question and answer session I can expand. And from that island of Britain, during the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ, he commenced his mission to eventually rule the world from Jerusalem. While, again, could you excuse me, I'm 74 years of age. I've been teaching this subject for so long, I'm tired now. While we were drinking our teh tarik and eating roti canai, the Russians were thinking, The Russian leader speaks like no Muslim leader dares to speak. None. No prime minister, no president, no king in this Muslim world dares to speak the way Putin speaks. I'm proud of Putin. He accuses the United States of imperial ambitions. He uses elegant language. That's Russian diplomacy today. They use elegant language, but they punch you with a powerful punch. They accuse the United States and the West of imperial ambitions, which is exactly what we're talking about here, wanting to rule the world. The mission commenced in Britain, and suddenly we find Britain emerging for the first time in modern history. It never happened before. Britain emerges as a ruling state. And when you were in school in Penang, they taught you about Pax Britannica. Yeah. And you knew that the sterling pound was His Majesty, the sterling pound. When you were in school in Penang, we see all of these jerseys from Penang today. Britain emerged as a ruling state. And not only does Britain control every single naval port in the world, strategically important naval port in the world, because the British Navy is more powerful than the combined might of all other navies in the world. Not only does Britain have military control over the sea, not only does Britain have the military technology on the land to wage modern warfare, but more ominously so, Britain begins the process of taking control of the world of money through the Bank of England. And Britain becomes the money lender par excellence of the world through a banking system. And eventually, the gold sterling coin, £1 in gold, disappears. And the paper replaces the gold. While we were eating our roti canai and drinking teh tarik. And then came the end of the day like a year. The first stage of the shadow had ended. And now the second stage of the shadow commenced. When Britain is facing defeat in the First World War and in the Second World War, and if the United States had not intervened, Britain would have been doomed. The United States has emerged out of nowhere and using slave labor while going to church on Sunday mornings and praying to a white man who is God. Using slave labor, they fast-tracked building a new paradise on earth. When we had slavery, we didn't start it. We met it. But they started slavery. They turned to slavery to build a new America, a golden world that will dazzle the world. We met slavery. We didn't start. And what did our prophets say? But the New York Times wouldn't print it. Our prophets said, give your slave to eat the food that you eat, and give him to wear the clothes that you wear. In Islam, when we liberated a slave, we made sure that we first restored his humanity. And then we liberated him. And after we liberated him, we embraced him as our brother. And by the next generation, you didn't know whose father was a slave master and whose father was a slave. But in the United States of America, which all of mankind is worshipping today, they've forgotten Mecca as their Qibla. Their Qibla is Washington and London. That's where they worship. They worship at the altar of a US visa. Forgive my sarcasm. The son of the slave and the grandson of the slave and the great-grandson and the great-great-great-great-grandson of the slave is still a slave. And the slave master is still a slave master after 200 years. And they dare to talk to Islam? So the United States has built fast track. And they take over from Britain. Because now you have something called, you must have heard about it, the aeroplane. The aeroplane. And so now wars are fought not only on the land and in the sea, but in the sky. Neville Chamberlain was Prime Minister of Britain, and he never set foot in an aeroplane until 1947, when he had to fly to Berlin. 1947 was just around the corner. Huh? So air power just came recent. And the United States is not only the most powerful country in the world militarily, more powerful than all the rest of the world combined, but the United States takes over from Britain as the financial and monetary capital of the world. And the US dollar replaces the sterling pound. Momentous change taking place in the world. And the scholars of Islam still drinking teh tarik and eating roti canai. And you can search and search and search and search. You will not find any analysis from any Islamic scholar using the Quran, using the Hadith to explain what is happening in the world. No. What happened to them? I believe methodology has played a significant role in this monstrous failure on the part of Islamic scholarship. And so a day like a month replaced a day like a year. And Pax Americana replaced Pax Britannica. We have an explanation for Pax Britannica. We have an explanation for Pax Americana. Let me hear yours. If you are a political scientist, let me hear what is your explanation. I have been around the universities. There is none. None. Ours is the only one. We are now living at that moment in time when if you have eyes and you can see, you would know that the United States of America is now in irreversible decline. And stage 3 of the shadow is about to replace stage 2. I may not live long enough to see the change from stage 2 to stage 1. Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. But you may live to see it. Well then, who is going to replace the United States? Is it China? No. Is it Russia? No. It's going to be Israel. How can Israel rule the world? The United States is big. Israel is small. Either Israel has to expand and become very big and powerful like the United States, or, very sad to mention it, The world has to become smaller. The world has to become smaller. Which one will it be? You know the answer. As terrifying as it is, you know the answer. That is why we're expecting nuclear war before November the 4th of this year. Before November the 4th of this year. Nuclear war. I hope I am wrong. I pray that I am wrong. I'll be happy if I'm wrong. But I have to tell you, they cannot take a chance that Donald Trump will become president. They cannot take that chance. Because Donald Trump says, it makes no sense for us to have this antagonistic relationship with Russia. Yes. No. Donald Trump says, I'm a businessman. I'm not going to allow the Chinese to do business the way they've been doing it in the past. Things are going to be different with me. So they cannot take a chance. They have to attack Russia before the elections in the United States. And Russia is ready for them. Russia is not afraid. And thank Allah for Russia. And thank Allah for China. We're not talking about Singapore. We're talking about China. China is a proud civilization. Don't look down your nose on the Chinese. China is a proud civilization. China will not bend her knee before Washington. No. And so the stage is now set. Our time is almost up. We do not have the time to explain. But mine is not the only voice. No, thank Allah. There are many, many, many voices around the world saying the same thing that I'm saying. That the Great War is around the corner. And this one is not going to be fought with sticks and stones. This is going to be a war fought with weapons of mass destruction. Amongst them we know about nuclear weapons, but there could be others as well that we don't know about. And when that war takes place, the world is going to become much smaller. So it's a good time to be old. It's a good time to be old. It's a terrible time to be young. Terrible. After the war takes place, do you know what our Prophet has said? He spoke about the war, incidentally. The next event to take place after the Great War, said Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, is what? The conquest of Constantinople. The Turkish government has prohibited you from even using the name Constantinople. It's against the law. You have to use the name Istanbul. Why are you afraid, Turkey? Huh? Come on, Mustafa Kemal, answer me. The answer is, they don't want you to hear what Muhammad ﷺ said. That's why. The conquest of Constantinople is to take place after the Great War. And that conquest makes sense only in terms of military affairs. Only military. Otherwise, why Constantinople? Why aren't we heading for Jerusalem? Constantinople stands on the Bosphorus. The Bosphorus is a waterway. If you studied geography at school, they did geography in Penang, didn't they? Yeah. You attended the class? Yes. Okay. The Bosphorus is a waterway which connects two seas. Which are the two seas? Come on, let me hear you. Good. This one is easy, the Mediterranean Sea. That one is the Black Sea, correct. The Black Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. Yeah. The Black Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. And if that passageway is open, today NATO controls it. NATO controls it directly now. And NATO controlled it before through their friend. Who was their friend? Who was their friend who controlled the Bosphorus for 500-600 years? The Ottoman, Dajjal's Ottoman Empire. Come on. When I say Dajjal's Ottoman Empire, I'm talking from eschatology. I'm not talking to my hat, okay? I know what I'm talking about, but I'm fighting against time here. It is only in one military sense that the conquest of Constantinople makes military sense, and that is that the Russian Navy will now have the freedom of passage. NATO cannot stop it, to enter into the Mediterranean, indicating that the war which is coming is going to spell the destruction of NATO. NATO will be gone, because NATO cannot prevent the conquest of Constantinople. Look at Islamic Eschatology, saying things that your International Islamic University knows nothing about. Nothing. This is an introduction to Islamic Eschatology. There's much more to the subject. I advise you to read my books. Several of my books are on eschatology, an Islamic view of Gog and Magog in the modern world, Jerusalem in the Quran. We have these in English and in Bahasa. Surah Al-Kahf and the modern age. Surah Al-Kahf is that surah of the Quran, more than any surah, which deals with Akhirul Zaman. And then there is a small booklet on Khidr, about 25 pages. On money, you'll find the gold dinar and silver dirham, Islam and the future of money. The paper money is going. Oh yes, there'll be no paper money tomorrow. When Israel takes over, the new money is going to be invisible and intangible. Electronic and digital money. And we said this 15, 20 years ago. Huh? But who was listening? At that time, you can't take your money out of the bank. So banks rule the world. Banking is almost ruling the world today. Tomorrow, banking will rule the world. And if you cross the line, that's it. Your account will be frozen. So we will all become slaves now in order to protect our bank account. You have to bow down and worship Dajjal if you want your bank account to remain open. That is tomorrow. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may make us as a people who will return to His book, the Quran, to study the Quran, that the Quran might explain to us the world today. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين آمين.